following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
So we're joined now by Josh Koscheck, the former #1 contender for the UFC title, former NCAA National Wrestling Champion, current Bellator star, and also joined by Filthy Tom Lawler. So what's going on, Josh? How you doing?
Not too bad, man. Glad to be able to be on this show for the first time, There's this big mysterious thing going around the internet, who you are, front row Brian, so, it's honored to get the chance to get on this show. I've heard a lot about you, through the internet, and it's a pretty cool experience to be getting a chance to chat with you.
Hey, Tom, is he marking out for me? I mean, I just can't believe this shit.
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to know how much you paid him, before you guys got me on the line to say these nice things about you. Because nobody said anything nice about you since you were born, Brian. So,
yeah,
usually. Well, guys, I'll just start with this. It's kind of like that whole thing about Josh Koscheck. Nobody's ever said anything nice to me in my whole life, so I might as well try to return the favor to Brian here and let him know that hey, people do look out after you, and people are listening, and he's one of the guys out there that actually what's caught my attention a while back is who actually will say things negative and report things accurately, which is what our mainstream MMA type of media guys do not do very well. They kind of are afraid of the upper powers as far as the UFC. And, the funny thing is Brian isn't afraid, and that's why he got that little shout-out.
I appreciate it, Josh. One of the things is I really have nothing to lose. Like, this isn't how I make a living. And so that's how I can kind of, be this kind of runaway or this, guy who really doesn't answer to anybody. But, sometimes I do get in trouble. I got in trouble with this whole World Series of Fighting thing, a mutual friend, they asked me to stop talking about it. I don't know if you heard about the whole thing.
No, I didn't hear about it, but that's a shame that somebody would ask you to talk. It's called America, and we have our Constitution for a reason, and there's this thing that's freedom of speech, type of thing. Yeah. And it's too bad that there's so many pussies in America these days that cry about somebody speaking their mind. And, if you don't like it, don't read my articles. That's what I would say, number one. Number two, if you don't like it, don't listen to my radio show. And then number three, it's my right. So go bang yourself.
Just to give you the quick story, the vice president of World Series of Fighting, Ali Abdel Azil, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's absolute fact. He was an FBI informant and infiltrated a terrorist cell that they're all over the country. And there is suspicion by our FBI that he was a double agent and he was spilling U.S. secrets to these terror cells. And, there's some articles that are going to come out about it. I mean, it's one of these crazy fucking stories that, like, you can't believe is true, but it's fucking true.
Yeah.
But
wow, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
So my thing is, do you have like an experience? Because you kind of have this niche, and now I'm going to interview you. So you kind of have this niche of like be able to find this crazy shit. Like, what do you do? Just sit on the computer all day long and just in your underwear and freaking coffee and watch porn and jerk off and investigate all this stuff? I mean, who has that kind of time?
Well, Tom. Tom, he got a few of those right, actually. That's actually.
Josh,
right.
We've had a few adult film stars on the show, female adult film stars, and I always wonder how Brian is, so into that scene, how he knows so much about it. So I think he definitely hit the nail on the head.
Yes. No, but you know what? I just have kind of a natural curiosity. It's entertaining to me to try to find out stuff that I'm really not supposed to know about. And I had somebody who's a really close friend, and was a huge star in this business, and he's just like, Bryant, you don't understand the voice you have in this thing. You have to be careful. You said one thing, and I have people calling me left and right. You got to know when, when to hold them, so to speak, with what you say.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty impressive. I mean, think about I don't know who, I don't really follow too much of the MMA, Joan, just because I'm so busy. But I know that you've been very vocal in supporting the fighters as far as just giving the truth and giving the facts. And as a fighter that's been around for a long time, we really, as coming from the fighters, we appreciate that. As far as, think about, this little drug scandal thing that the UFC had going on with Vitor Belfort and John Jones and things like that. I mean, it's just crazy. You wonder how much shit like that they're doing behind the doors that just gets underplugged because they didn't leak out an email type of thing, So it's kind of good to have guys out there that will stand up and will speak their minds. And, it's kind of like you might be the Josh Koscheck of reporting, I guess, we'll say.
Yeah, hate it, but respect it. That's a pretty good gimmick. But
yeah.
So Josh, you're in Bellator now. You were with the UFC for over a decade, one of their original stars. Arguably, you and Lieben, that whole incident sold that fucking show. Of course, everybody's going to say it was Dana White and he was a star and he was Vince McMahon. But a lot of people point to the incident with you and Lieben as being this breaking point for the Ultimate Fighter, which is basically the reason the UFC is where it's at right now.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been such a long journey. I've had great days inside the cage, and I've had some days where I'm just like, what the hell am I doing type of thing. But it's been a fun ride. Being able to be a pioneer, a guy that, you get on a show and you start things and you realize that, like, oh, these guys just aren't real reality TV stars, what everybody assumed at the beginning. We were true fighters. And, I think that the Ultimate Fighter cast #1 did a great job of coming out and proving that we were fighters. You still have guys like Diego Sanchez. You have, Chris Lieben. You have Kenny Florian, who fought for the belt, probably 15 times in like 4 different weight classes. You have, Stephan Bonner. You have, guys like Forrest Griffin that, still competed at the highest level. And, one guy became the champion. So, we had numerous guys from that show fighting for the title and the UFC strap. So it was a pretty cool experience. Me and Lieben had our beef, and, we'll put that to rest someday, I'm sure. But, it did help, generate and create curiosity for the sport and bring the sport to a new level.
So, Tom, did you try to get on the first Ultimate Fighter? I think you were on season 8, right?
Yeah. Brian, I wasn't even fighting at that point. I was like, it was a pipe dream. So, when the first Ultimate Fighter came out, it was kind of the first, instance where there's an outlet for the sport, for the UFC. It had been underground or in the dark ages for so long, and then, kind of picked up a little steam when Zuffa first took over. But, up until that 2005 time period, there was no outlet. There was no real, there was no Ultimate Fighter to want to even be on. So the fact that it was happening was, so far out of my mind at that point. And it's crazy to think, like, that was 10 years ago. That was 10 years ago, Josh, that you were on that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing to look at pictures. You guys look so young. Like, even Forrest, Forrest has aged like 20 years in the past 10 years. And even he looked so young back then, all those guys.
Yeah, well, that's because he's still involved with the UFC, and that type of stress will put some years on you.
So tell us about your exit from the UFC. I assume they offered you a new contract.
I mean, we had a phone call, and I just, we had a quick phone call. It was a quick call. Prior to I was actually at my house playing in my garages, working on dirt bikes and razors and just chilling in the garage, and Bob Cook shows up at my house and says, "Hey, I got Lorenzo and Dana on the phone." And, they're like, "Well, we want to re-sign you, and this is what we want to pay you." And I was like, I'm not interested in that kind of money. That's, no thanks, and that was basically it. And I just said, I won't fight for that. I won't fight for that kind of money. And Dan goes, "Well, you did lose a couple fights in a row." I said, "Yeah, whatever." I was like, whatever. I was like, I don't want to, re-sign with you guys because I saw the writing on the wall with the Reebok deal. I saw the writing on the wall with the direction the company was going, and I didn't really like that, So that's kind of like where I left it, and I just didn't think anything of it. And then I wasn't even thinking like, oh, hey, I'm just gonna go and jump on board and sign with Bellator and this and that. I was just like, we'll just see what happens. We'll just wait for an opportunity to come, and if one comes, it comes. If not, then whatever, So a couple weeks later, Scott Coker and myself had a conversation, and Bob Cook, and they proposed the contract to me, and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. I was like, man, all these fighters should fight their fight out and, figure out, what their free agent market value is. And I think it's important. It's the only leverage that fighters have. So I just was smart and waited out my contract until the negotiating was done. And then, I could go out and negotiate with someone else. And, I got paid a shitload of money to join Bellator. And, and I couldn't be happier because one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Bellator as well is because Scott Coker is a badass dude. He's awesome. He's totally down. He'll work with you. He won't pick up the phone and be like, F you, you did this, F you, and have a pissing match like I've had with Dana White in the past, it's all good now. I'm not bitter by the UFC. I did some good things for them, and they did some great things for me. But at the end of the day, it's a business, and you have to look out for you, number one, because they don't really give a shit about you. That's just the way it is. That's just the way business is. So if I was these young fighters out there, I wouldn't take anything personal. It's just business. They're not going to look after you. They don't give two shits about you, and I knew that.
So, hey, Tom, you're probably in a similar situation. I don't know your current contract situation, but what do you think of Josh's point that I think it's the best thing you can do is to fight out your contract because it's the closest thing to free agency. And if you look at every other sport, the guys that get paid the most money are guys that get to become free agents. Look at David Price, got $217 million from the Boston Red Sox.
Well, that's because the Boston Red Sox are awesome.
Well, yeah. But what's your take? What do you think? More of these guys should fight out their contracts and stop letting Joe Silva push them around and say, "I'm gonna fuck you on the last fight. I'm gonna put you in there with a hammer, and your market value is gonna go to shit."
Okay, well, we just saw, we saw an instance of that with Ben Henderson fighting out his contract this past weekend, and to my knowledge, this is one of the first, instances in which it's like the UFC went into this show knowing what could happen and still didn't, safeguard against it or hold Benson Henderson back. So it's interesting to me that kind of in this situation that they're doing that because in the past they've held people out from fights or, not giving them an opportunity to fight out the last fight in the contract. So I don't know if perhaps it's just, there's a paradigm shift in the MMA world. Maybe the UFC is looking at the external pressure from lawsuits and that sort of thing and, making them think twice about trying to sign every fighter and keep everybody under their own umbrella. You brought up the free agency aspect. I think it's a great idea, but I just re-signed a contract with the UFC. So, I think it's a great idea to go and test the market. But, personally, I just signed a new contract, so I don't know if you really want to listen to my advice on that.
Shitty advice.
Hey, well, you know what, Josh? Listen, if I were to know this,
you're going to fight. I promise you. And you got to look at this. You got to look at the perspective. Look at Phil Davis. His salary doubled by going to Bellator. Josh Thompson fought this fight out. He knew he wasn't going back to the UFC. He went to Bellator. He's making a shitload of money. What you see, the difference is Scott Coker has the ability, and I don't think it's anybody's right as far as like, you know, the fans. What you're going to see when I fight, maybe I'll say I want to fight for $10,000, but really you don't know what I'm making because that's none of your goddamn business how much money I'm making. So I feel like it's all bullshit that the UFC puts everybody's money out there or what they're making. And it is true with the UFC. What you see is what you get for the majority of most of the guys. These guys are not making shit, you know? And then you come over here to Bellator, it's like, hey, what Josh Thompson fight for last time? 10 and 10 or 10,000 or something like that. I know for a fact he didn't make that kind of money. I would bet my house on it that he didn't make 10 grand for his last fight or whatever it was.
And you have quite a house. I've heard that you have quite a house, like a $3 million home.
No, I whatever, you know, it doesn't really matter of like what my house is, but the thing is that it's, you know, it's built on hard work, you know. But the thing about Josh Thompson, let's not get off this point here. He made a lot of money, but the fans don't know it. The other fighters don't know it. Bellator has a system that they can just pay you whatever they want. They can make deals and negotiate to where you get all your money before you even fight or after you fight, you know? So it's kind of a nice thing with Scott Coker. It's like, hey, why should the fans know how much Josh Koscheck's making? It's none of your fucking business, you know? I'm not a publicly traded company, you know? I'm a private entity. I'm Josh Koscheck's own business, you know? It's a private entity. So how much money I'm making shouldn't be broadcasted out there, and it's the same. Let's just see if it's so valuable to know how much money these fighters are making. Then why doesn't UFC put out? Why doesn't Bellator and the UFC put out, and all these fight organizations put out how much money they're making every year? You know, so if it's okay for the fighters, if people know how much the fighters are getting made, I think it's bullshit that everybody's announcing that this David Price made $217 million. Yeah, I'd be pretty pumped about it. Like, hey. Well, brag about it, you know, put me in all the papers. I just made $217 million over 7 years, put it in the paper. But, you know, it's almost borderline embarrassing what some of these fighters are making out there. It's like, why do you even want to put it out there? It makes your product look shittier, you know? And that's what the sport of MMA has become. What's that?
Yeah. Josh, one of the things that, you know, and you're one of the few, very, very few people I've seen mention this. It gets brought up a lot of times that fighters get these discretionary bonuses. And, you know, I've been in situations where I've gotten bonuses, where I've gotten discretionary bonuses, and where I've gotten nothing. So a lot of times I think the fans have heard about people getting these huge locker room bonuses in the back. But, you know, that doesn't happen every fight. And for a lot of fighters, it doesn't happen at all.
What's huge? 10 grand, 15 grand, 50 grand?
I've heard of up to 100,000. Probably more than that.
Okay, but still, 100,000. You're putting your life on the line out there. You know, you're training your ass off.
But Josh, my point is that, you know, I think the fans have this idea that every fighter's getting one of these locker room bonuses, and that's just not the fact.
Not true. No, it's not true. No chance. Not true. But the thing is you look at, you know, I mean, the sport. I mean, let's be real. What type of organization, you know, can go in there with the drug scandal that they had and not get any repercussions, you know? I mean, I'm at odd by myself, and this is just my opinion, that, you know, how can you cover up a scandal and then not have any repercussions from either the athletic commissions? They didn't do anything, none of them. So, like, who's the police? You know, who's to say they're not doing this all the time? Who's to say other organizations aren't doing this? You know, so it's kind of like, who's the police of the police? You know, and that's what frustrates me is, like, you know, you have these people. How many guys I want to look back and like say, fuck, how many guys did I fight on steroids or drugs that they let in my past with my career? You know, that concerns me because that could have took away a chance of me being, you know, a champion or fighting for the title again, or, you know, making more money. You know, that takes money out of my pocket if they were letting somebody else cheat. You know, what happens if Vitor Belfort beat John Jones in that fight? You know, what happened? That just stole a ton of money and a legacy of John Jones, correct?
Yeah, but it comes down to Lorenzo's fetish of Vitor Belfort. That's his guy. He's got some weird obsession with this guy.
Yeah, well, I just, maybe that's the case. I don't know, but I just find it's okay. So what if he hurt John Jones in the fight and put him in a hospital or killed him?
Well, he did hurt John Jones. I mean, I know for a fact that arm was a lot more fucked up than they said in public.
Yeah.
I mean, it was bad. And yeah, you're right. Nothing happened. They trotted out this chump Dave Schaller, and he said some comment about, back then it was a kind of a murky thing, TRT. We really didn't know how to look at the results. Well, you didn't think to call up a fucking endocrinologist and ask him why some guy with low testosterone has 1,000 nanograms per deciliter reading? I mean, fucking 22-year-old guys don't have that.
Yeah. It's just like, how much, like, who's policing these organizations? It's supposed to be the athletic commission, maybe, possibly, I don't know. I mean, so in my opinion, I just think that there needs to be some big changes, and hopefully, there will be in the future, and they could get this sport cleaned up and get it to where it needs to be, and be real people that really truly care about the fighters. Because if you cared about the fighter, you would never let another fighter go in there knowingly let another fighter go in there on steroids or whatever that he's doing, fight another fighter. So, and then, it's just very frustrating for me as far as, being a competitor for 10 years with an organization that did things like that. Makes me wonder as a fighter of like, okay, shit, did I get anybody that I fought that was on this shit and they just waved it under the table because maybe they didn't like me or maybe they liked that guy or, so for me, it frustrates me big time.
Yeah, well, I'm looking through some of the guys that you fought, and I think there's a few prospects that were using that they knew a lot about. But I'm somewhat surprised you ended up in Bellator. I think you had made your name as easily one of the top 5 most hated fighters in UFC history. Hate in a good way. The way where you get a lot of heat, where I remember one fight. There was a lot of Canadians at the fight. It was some fight in Vegas. You walked out. You went to your seat. The whole fucking building booed you, and you were just there watching. I mean, and then you go on. You sell 1 million pay-per-views with George St. Pierre, and you're a tough winner. I didn't think they gave you a fair shot on Fox. They gave you a couple gigs on Fox. They didn't really give you much of an opportunity. So I just find it weird how some guys get taken care of and then some guys don't get taken care of. And who's the arbiter of that?
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing of the thing, going with the drug testing and things like that. And, there is no police, in that thing. They police themselves. And, don't be surprised I went to Bellator, and you're going to see a lot of good things about Bellator in the future. I just think that it's about getting eyeballs, over there, and they're doing it. Look at their ratings. Their ratings are kicking ass. Bellator ratings are awesome. And, Scott Coker is a genius when it comes to mixed martial arts. I don't know if you guys like him or not, but I don't really care. I appreciate Scott Coker for what he's doing. And I, to be honest with you, it's a blessing to have somebody that you can call the phone. I could pick up the phone right now, call Scott Coker, and be like, "Hey, Scott, man, I'm blah, 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 blah. I have this problem with this contract, Oh, don't worry about it. We'll work it out. It's just not, hey, you signed it. Fuck you. You got to do what you got to do, So, that's the good thing, man. I can't express to all these young fighters out there, man. They all like, can't wait to get to the UFC. Yeah, the UFC is awesome, man. They got a great show. They kick ass. They do. They have a show. But you're just another number there. They don't give a fuck about you. They care about their show. They care about putting on events, and that's it. All it is a cycle of, hey, next week, we got 5 events this month. We got 10 events this month. That's all they care about now. They don't care about building the fighters, and if they do build a fighter, it's a one-hit pony, So, I just think that they could have much more. They could have bigger stars, and their pay-per-views could be kicking ass instead of doing 120, 130,000 buys.
So that's in the past. Looking forward, Josh, you're gonna come back Bellator 148 January 29th in Fresno, California, where it's basically your adopted hometown now.
Yeah, yep. I can't wait, man. It's a getting fight in Fresno, in front of all my fans. The people that have been supporting me for all these years. It's funny because, even from Fresno, I still have some haters. Every once in a while, I'll be like in a store or something, be like, "Hey, Koscheck, fuck you." I'm like, "Yeah, fuck you." But it's good. It's all fun because I have, a lot of people here that have been supporting me over the years with my gyms and, just different things. I try to do a lot of things in the community to give back, and with the kids, and mixed martial arts is growing big here. And, we've now had a gym here, 2 locations for 7 years. We're going on our 8th year this year, starting December 15th. So it's good things happening around here in Fresno, and I can't wait to have Bellator in town again. And this time, I don't got to be a spectator. I get to participate in the event.
Sure. Hey, Tom, do you have anything for anything in general?
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at this. I was going to ask about, obviously the upcoming opponent, Matt Secor, largely unknown to the majority of MMA fans, but he is 7-2 with 6 of those 7 wins coming by submission, and coming off an Achilles lock submission win, and before that, I believe he beat a tough guy from the Northeast in World Series of Fighting, actually. So is there any, you have anything planned for this guy that's out of the ordinary, or are we expect to see Josh Koscheck take him down and beat the crap out of him?
I don't even know about a game plan yet. I haven't really talked to Bob Cook. He's been busy with all the fighters that he has coming up here. So, I'll get a chance to spend some time with him. We'll go over a good game plan, and my thing is just to get a victory. It's been quite a while, and I'll be the first to say, my goal, back when I had the, my contract with the UFC was just fight it out and get done and be done with it. And I have a lot of pressure off my back now. And I feel like training's going great. I got some good young guys around me that have been training pretty hard, and I feel like I'm just going to go out there and get a victory and start my new career in Bellator. But to be honest with you guys, I probably only have a couple fights left. I know it all comes to an end someday. So I'll probably do a couple of fights with Bellator. This one maybe 1 or 2 more, but and then that's it, because I'm busy. I'm so busy outside of the cage that it keeps me hustling every day. So I have to put a lot of business on hold right now for training. So it's kind of frustrating as far as growing my other businesses and things like that. So but it's the sacrifice you make of being a fighter, and that's where I'm at right now. So I'm going to take my time with this thing, go out there and train hard, and come, I believe it's January 29th here in Fresno, and live on Spike TV, you're going to get to see Josh Koscheck reunited with Spike, which is pretty cool. I started my career on Spike TV, fighting on The Ultimate Fighter when they had it, and by God, I'll end my career on Spike TV as well.
So, Josh, you mentioned some of the guys in the gym that are that you're working with. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Chris Honeycutt, former wrestling star at Edinburgh, just like yourself. What's the ceiling for this guy? Can this guy be the best fighter in the world at his weight class?
I think so. He's a big sucker. The other day he came in, he was like 202, and I was like, Jesus Christ, how are you going to make 170? And then today he weighed out at 190, or probably around 190, something like that. And he's like, yeah, I'm only 20 over. So, but he's kind of reminds me like when I was younger. Like he just works his ass off. He focuses a lot right now on his boxing, and his kicking and his jiu-jitsu, so he knows he has the wrestling aspect of it. So he's doing the right things, kind of, mirroring how I was when I was younger, when it just was like, hey, I know I suck at boxing, so I got to get better. And that's what he's done. He's put a ton of time into boxing, ton of time into his jiu-jitsu and his kicking. So I think it's up to him, obviously, but I definitely think he has the ability, the skill set. When it comes time to fight, he goes out there and picks guys up, slams them down. He's exciting. And, in his last fight, with the unfortunate cut with Mr. Paul Bradley, I think, it was going his way, before that happened. So I think Chris, will definitely be one of those guys to look after in the next couple of years. He's definitely going to make a big name for himself in this sport.
What do you think of Honeycutt, Tom?
I really wanted to see that last fight, continue on. Very, unfortunate ending. Are those two aren't gonna rematch? I imagine then Honeycutt and Bradley. Honeycutt was the prospect, and Bradley's kind of the the veteran who's been in there for a while. I mean, he's highly underrated. And that fight was good while it lasted, but it was about a round and a half. But I'd like to see them finish that.
They're going to finish. They're actually fighting on the same card as
perfect.
So, so that's going to be a good one. Honeycutt and Bradley, they're going to get to redo that one again. I believe, they're probably the second fight on the card or something on the lines of that. I think Bellator does 4 fights that night. So, live on Spike. So, it'll be, the good thing is how cool is that? It'll be, Paul Bailey's fighting in my hometown as well. So, on the same card, he's the co-main event. So, let's talk about that one for a minute, huh? How about that? How about Josh Koscheck, Paul Bailey too in Fresno, California, maybe in the same night, maybe January 29th, we might just have a encore and get the chance to smack Paul Bailey around again. That would be sick, huh?
Well, he's got to get by Andy Ukrick first.
Wait, are you saying
even if he doesn't?
Are you saying in the cage, or
you
might see him backstage?
No. Well, there might be a secret. That's why you got to tune into Bellator that night. There might be a 4-man tournament. You never know.
Wow, we might have some breaking news there. I mean, I know California allows it.
Yeah. So you never know what happens. You never know. Win or lose. Maybe Josh Koscheck and Paul Bailey. If he wins and I win, and we might just do it that night, January 29th. You never know.
See, I think they should have just booked you versus Daly. Period. Forget about the first, these warm up fights, because that's as soon as they announced you to Bellator, everyone was saying, "Oh yeah, we want to see that fight with Daly."
Yeah, well, you never know. That could potentially happen that night. We don't, That's why you got to tune into Spike TV. So you never know. Things like that. You've seen it before with Scott Coker, so you never know. It could just be, right at the beginning of the show, you'll see the credits come on, you'll see the fighters talking, and you might get some good news.
So, yeah, but Josh, I don't think you can make a tournament the day of the event. There has to be some kind of sanctioning. And
well, what if it's all private? What if there's non-disclosure signed with everybody involved? Huh? Maybe the athletic commission signed on disclosures.
See, I heard that you don't like pro wrestling, but you are pro wrestling, and you don't even know you're doing it.
Well, I like pro wrestling if they would give me a contract and pay me.
You got your eyes on any more wrestlers at Edinburgh? Like, what's Mitchell Port doing? Why don't you bring him to the base camp?
How do you know these guys?
Well, I'm a wrestling fan.
You're a wrestling fan, like amateur wrestling fan or a college wrestling fan?
Well, I follow both. I probably know the college a little bit better because I don't know the international guys as well.
No shit. Like, what's your back? Like, what? Have you ever wrestled before?
No, I played baseball. I wasn't tough enough to wrestle. I tried, and I was like, fuck this. I'm just going to stick to baseball.
Baseball. I know some of my friends are baseball players in the major leagues. They're such pussies. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. It's all good. But no,
they are.
They are. Yeah, it's true. Let's just face it. They are. They get paid millions to just get fat and chew tobacco and, just throw a baseball around. It's pretty cool, though. I'm jealous. But no, wrestlers, there's some young wrestlers out there. Bellator just signed Ed Ruth, and I'll tell you what, he's been coming up here and training with us. God damn, he's an athlete. He's so good already. It's crazy. And then young Aaron Pico, you guys have heard of him, I'm sure.
Sure.
Let me tell you what, he's an 18-year-old kid. He hits like a goddamn truck. It's so crazy how hard and how technical and how good his boxing is, let alone how good his wrestling is, and his work ethic. He's going to be a force, that Bellator has. Bellator's signing all these young studs that, obviously they haven't proven themselves yet in the mixed martial arts, but they're stud wrestlers. So, they're going to be successful in this game once they transition over. You think about it, look at the King Mo and, Phil Davis, that transitioned from wrestling into this game. And, the list goes on and on of successful wrestlers that have been in this game. It's pretty surreal to see that they're taking chances on these young kids and getting them into Bellator.
It actually kind of seems like Bellator is, I wouldn't say jumping the gun as the term, but they're, getting off to a head start and grabbing some of these amateur wrestlers and kind of setting a precedent as far as that goes. Obviously Pico was probably the biggest name, and it looks like he's out in maybe L.A. with Blackhouse or Nick Curson, who works with
King's MMA every once in a while down there. But he also has a couple of boxing gyms that he goes to. He goes to Freddie Roach's quite a bit and does some training there as well with Freddie and those guys. So he's around. Anytime you're in that LA area, you're in a hotbed of mixed martial arts training. There's so many good gyms down there in boxing, so it's pretty cool. I'm telling you, this young kid's got a hell of a punch, man. He hits hard.
Well,
I can't. I'm excited. I'm excited for him, to have the chance to come. He's been training when he comes into Fresno quite a bit. He comes and trains here, and man, I got the chance to work with him a couple times, and I was like, damn, this little dude hits hard.
Yeah, the Olympic trials are in April. He has a chance of winning, but that weight class, Brent Metcalf from Iowa has been kind of ruling that weight class, and I think Logan Stieber and Jordan Oliver, who's a kid that's coming to MMA too. I know that. So it's possible, he could be done in April, and maybe he debuts in Bellator. Like say he comes in third or fourth. Maybe he debuts in Bellator late 2016.
Yeah, there's probably a good chance of that if he doesn't make the Olympic team. So the same with Ed Ruth as well. Both of those guys, if they're not on the Olympic team, then they're going to be debuting hopefully in Bellator here, relatively pretty quick. So I think it's, obviously you have Zinkin Entertainment, Bob Cook and Dwayne Zinkin, who, manages those guys. They're kind of going out into the wrestling community, which is awesome because you think about it, there's only, 7 guys that make the Olympic team in wrestling for men. So you have all these other guys that, it's like, well, shit, I'm not on the Olympic team, so how can I make a living? And the living is, they transition right into mixed martial arts, and they become, a professional fighter. So it's pretty badass to see that, they're taking chances on these young wrestlers because you guys, you know how tough it is in the sport of mixed martial arts. Try to do, make it a professional career in wrestling. It's very difficult, The money is not there, the sponsorship's not there. So these guys are out there working, for pennies on the dollar every day for a dream, to win a medal. And, you got to dedicate or you got to appreciate that type of work ethic.
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't know why some of these guys, they go to the nationals or the trials every year. They come in third, fourth, and fifth every year, and they're 29 or 30 years old, and it's just like, hey, there's only 2 guys that make money in wrestling: Jordan Burroughs and David Taylor, and maybe Kyle Dake. And everybody else makes nothing. So it's like, and that's why I've had this conversation a lot with Ben Askren, and he's just like, the year I went to the Olympics, he told me I made $20,000, and he said I was just sick of being poor, and I went and fought, and he said like I'm just good at fighting. But I love wrestling. Wrestling is what I want to do, but I'm good at this, and they'll pay me a bunch of money to do it.
Yeah, I love Ben's attitude. Ben Askren, he's sweet. He's sweet, I love when he just batters Dana on Twitter. I think probably Dana's blocked him by now. So, but yeah, pretty sweet,
He's out here in Denver. He's out here in Denver. He said for me to call him after I was done talking with you. We're gonna go get some dinner or whatever. But
oh, cool.
Yeah,
so you're not like this guy that nobody knows. People kind of know you then. So you're not like an undercover guy that's like afraid to go out in public because, you talk a lot of shit type of stuff.
No,
that's pretty cool.
Usually wears the fake glasses and nose.
No, most people know me. I mean, it's not that much of a secret.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good to know. At least you can go out in public and nobody's going to beat you up. So, because you couldn't defend yourself. You couldn't really defend yourself as a baseball player.
Yeah, well, these guys, it would be a long night for me. Yeah, well, hopefully it doesn't happen. But I kind of keep saying like, well, if they feel like they need to do it, I'm not going to run. I have to keep up my image too. I'm not going to run away from them. So might just have to take an ass whooping, like a man, and move on with my life.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, at least you could take a nap. I mean, that's how I think America should be now. It's like, hey, screw lawyers, screw all the bullshit. Put on a set of gloves and go out there and just get it done. 5 minutes is all you need. Settle your differences and then go have a beer afterwards.
Yeah,
it's perfect. Everybody loves a good fight,
Yeah. So hey, Tom, do you have anything? Do you have anything in closing for Josh? He's been very generous with his time and very entertaining guy to talk to.
Yeah. I think Josh. I think you should really give pro wrestling a shot. After listening to you, despite how much you may hate it, you may have missed the boat.
Nah. I don't know if my body. I'd be like Kurt Angle. I don't know if my body could handle it. I've been wrestling since I've been 4 years old as a kid, you guys, and tonight I actually had to take off from training. Usually, one night a week, I'll pick one night that's kind of good, and it's usually been Thursday because Wednesday we do straight wrestling on Wednesday, and after wrestling day, I'm like, holy smokes, this is what these college kids feel like. This is what it's like to be back at Edinburgh again. I'm wrestling with these young, what's Honeycutt, 26 years old, and all the other guys are all like 22, 23, 24-year-old kids. And, they're just hacking away in there at you. And, it's like you come out of that wrestling program or wrestling day on Wednesday and you're just like, holy smokes. I go straight home. I fill the bathtub up with Epsom salt and I lay in there for an hour after every Wednesday. So, the good thing is tonight I chose to take off. So, I'm glad to talk to you guys as long as you guys need. So, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's pretty cool. So you popped my cherry today for the first time on your show. So pretty sweet.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
So we're joined now by Josh Koscheck, the former #1 contender for the UFC title, former NCAA National Wrestling Champion, current Bellator star, and also joined by Filthy Tom Lawler. So what's going on, Josh? How you doing?
Not too bad, man. Glad to be able to be on this show for the first time, There's this big mysterious thing going around the internet, who you are, front row Brian, so, it's honored to get the chance to get on this show. I've heard a lot about you, through the internet, and it's a pretty cool experience to be getting a chance to chat with you.
Hey, Tom, is he marking out for me? I mean, I just can't believe this shit.
Yeah, I think so. I'd like to know how much you paid him, before you guys got me on the line to say these nice things about you. Because nobody said anything nice about you since you were born, Brian. So
yeah,
usually. Well, guys, I'll just start with this. It's kind of.
And I had somebody who's a really close friend and, was a huge star in this business. And he's just like, Bryant, you don't understand the voice you have in this thing. You have to be careful. You said one thing and I have people calling me left and right. You got to know when to hold them, so to speak, with what you say.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty impressive. I mean, think about I don't know who, I don't really follow too much of the MMA, John, just because I'm so busy. But I know that you've been very vocal in supporting the fighters as far as just giving the truth and giving the facts. And as a fighter that's been around for a long time, we really, as coming from the fighters, we appreciate that. As far as, think about this little drug scandal thing that the UFC had going on with Vitor Belfort and John Jones and things like that. It's just crazy. You wonder how much shit like that they're doing behind the doors that just gets underplugged because they didn't leak out an email type of thing, Like that whole thing about Josh Koscheck. Nobody's ever said anything nice to me in my whole life. So I might as well, try, to return the favor to Brian here and let him know that, hey, people do look out after you, and people are listening, and he's one of the guys out there that actually, what's caught my attention a while back is who actually will say things negative and report things accurately, which is what our mainstream MMA type of media guys do not do very well. They kind of are afraid of the upper powers as far as the UFC. And, the funny thing is Brian isn't afraid, and that's why he got that little shout-out.
I appreciate it, Josh. One of the things is I really have nothing to lose. Like, this isn't how I make a living. And so that's how I can kind of, be this kind of runaway or this, guy who really doesn't answer to anybody. But, sometimes I do get in trouble. I got in trouble with this whole World Series of Fighting thing, a mutual friend, they asked me to stop talking about it. I don't know if you heard about the whole thing.
No, I didn't hear about it, but that's a shame that somebody would ask you to talk. It's called America, and we have our Constitution for a reason, and there's this thing that's freedom of speech, type of thing. Yeah. And it's too bad that there's so many pussies in America these days that cry about somebody speaking their mind. And, if you don't like it, don't read my articles. That's what I would say, number one. Number two, if you don't like it, don't listen to my radio show. And then number three, it's my right. So go bang yourself.
Just to give you the quick story, the vice president of World Series of Fighting, Ali Abdel-Aziz, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's absolute fact. He was an FBI informant and infiltrated a terrorist cell that they're all over the country. And there is suspicion by our FBI that he was a double agent and he was spilling U.S. secrets to these terror cells. And, there's some articles that are going to come out about it. It's one of these crazy fucking stories that, like, you can't believe is true, but it's fucking true.
Yeah.
But
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So my thing is, do you have like an experience? Because you kind of have this niche, and now I'm going to interview you. So, you kind of have this niche of like be able to find this crazy shit. Like, what do you do? Just sit on the computer all day long and just in your underwear and freaking coffee and, watch porn and jerk off and investigate all this stuff? Who has that kind of time?
Well, Tom. Tom, he got a few of those right, actually. That's actually.
Josh, we've had a few adult film stars on the show, female adult film stars, and I always wonder how Brian is, so into that scene, how he knows so much about it. So I think he definitely hit the nail on it.
Yeah. So. No, but you know what? I just have kind of a natural curiosity. It's entertaining to me to try to find out stuff that I'm really not supposed to know about.